Alright, the cross stick. Let's talk about the cross stick. So that's when we take our stick and we lay it on top of the snare drum and get that clicky knocking sound. So there's some stuff that goes into this in order to kind of pull it off and get a good sound. And let me move the camera so you can actually see what this looks like. Alright, so cross stick. So basically we're laying the stick on top of the snare and we're keeping the butt end of the stick on the head, and we just lift up and slam it down so it touches the rim over here. And we get that nice click knock sound. So factors that determine the sound you get. The biggest thing probably is thinking about the distance from the butt end to the rim or the butt end to the center of the drum. So changing this, it probably has the biggest effect on the sound that you're going to get. So if I go all the way to the rim and then move towards the center, you'll see how the sound changes. Okay, so back by the rim we get this really thin, dry, super clicky sound. And then if we went all the way to the center, which to be honest I usually don't go that far, but you get a much throatier, more resonant, deep, there's more lows in the sound. It's a little more bassy sounding compared to this. Okay, so my kind of default setting for this is trying to find this point sort of in between those where I get the nicest, generally loudest click kind of sound out of my cross stick. And that'll usually be maybe a couple inches away from the rim. So that right there sounds a little bit too throaty for me. It's a little bit too close to the center. So if I move it back towards the rim just a little bit, I bet it gets closer to what I'm looking for. So without the change, and then moving. Yeah, I mean, I literally just moved like a quarter of an inch or something, and it changed the sound drastically and got what I was looking for, that nice loud click sound that's a perfect balance between kind of thin and dry and bassy and throaty. Okay, so you gotta kind of find that sweet spot, and this will change depending on a few things, depending on the size of the drum you're playing. So this is a 13. If I was playing on a 14, that might be a different location for the butt end of the stick to get a good sound. Also, tuning will affect it to some degree, depending on how low or high your top batter side head is tuned. That will change where that needs to be. And also the stick that you use will change the sound. So a thin stick versus a thick stick, or even the types of wood, maple to hickory, those things, they all change kind of where that sweet spot is going to be for your cross stick. Now, another consideration is, do you leave your hand on the head after you play a cross stick, or do you kind of keep it off of the head after you play a cross stick? So hand on, we get this nice dry sound. If I sort of left my hand off it more, you'd end up with a certain amount of ring coming out of the drum. So coming off, leaving it on, So I basically never do the handoff thing unless I'm looking for that very specific effect. For one thing, it feels weird. It doesn't feel stable. Like by leaving my hand on and sort of spreading my fingers out, like I mean, I could lean right on this drum if I wanted to. It's like a nice foundation to work off of. Whereas if I'm trying to do this sort of thing, even if I leave the heel of my hand on the drum, it feels kind of weird, and I don't like the sound either. I generally, I don't want that ring in there, and it's harder for me to get loud if I want to get loud. So I always have this kind of thing going on. So I'm really just grabbing it between the thumb and the first finger to lift, and then I drop. And you can see a lot of times I just kind of release that grip after the stick makes contact. Or you can kind of leave it on there. Either way, I think it depends on what I'm doing for a pattern. Okay, so another factor is, do you play a cross stick like this with the stick in like a normal position where the tip is, you know, away from your hand? Or do you flip the stick around so that the tip is over here and the butt end is out here? This will also affect the sound greatly. And it also affects where that sweet spot is. So to me, on this 13-inch drum, with this particular tuning, with this particular drumstick turned around the other way, where I have it right now, it sounds too bassy, too throaty. It's not popping out. I don't get that nice click. It's close, but I bet you if I move it this way towards the rim just a little bit, it'll improve. Yeah. So again, that was literally maybe 1/4 of an inch, and I get this nice crack out of it. Again, this will be different on different sized drums with different tuning and different sticks. And so the deal with this is a lot of times you'll see drummers go to this flipped around stick method because they can get louder with it. And that is when I use this method. Only if I need a super loud cross stick do I flip my stick around. The rest of the time, which is honestly most of the time, I don't have to do that. I just leave it in its normal position, and then that's one less thing to have to deal with when I'm trying to play music, is flipping my stick around and then flipping it back around. I can get really loud this way if I want to, and to be honest, most of the time I prefer this sound. I tend to get a little more crack, a little more high-end click out of it, and usually with this, it's a little more bassy, a little more throaty, but, you know, it also works. So, that would be like the default thing for me, and then, like we talked about before, you can move towards the rim a lot, or towards the center a lot. If I was doing if I was playing some super low volume music, then even with the stick in this normal position, probably the sweet spot would be too loud. Even if I play soft, might be too loud. So I would move it all the way to the rim, or closer to the rim at least, and then I can get super quiet if I want to. Okay, so, all right. I think that does it for cross stick. Thanks for watching. See you next time.